Avi. I'm the Collections and Scholarly Communication Librarian at the University of New Orleans. And I'm here with David Como, who's a Systems Librarian at LSU Libraries, and Cara Cruz Lee, who's with EBSCO. And we've been working together on some projects around these issues and challenges of getting ebooks into courses, and that's what we want to share with you today. We don't have three discrete presentations. We have one, and we kind of will be getting up and down to trade off covering the slides, just so you know that's how it'll go. Before we get into our specifics of the ebook acquisition and incorporation into courses, I wanted to talk a little bit about the more general landscape of affordability that libraries are involved in increasingly. I think the most visible one that we're probably all pretty familiar with is OER promotion. And libraries, of course, have been involved with everything from just introducing the idea of OER to faculty, helping them select and locate material, to administering grant programs, to incentivize faculty to transform courses, and even publishing OER. A maybe slightly less known strategy in this arena that libraries are increasingly involved in is curriculum-based collection development. And this is basically acquiring ebooks that are assigned in courses. And it's not very different from what we've always done. We've always aligned our collections with our institutional priorities for teaching and research, but this is a little bit more one-to-one, buying books as they're assigned. And closely related to that is this broader engagement of faculty in considering what to select and to try to be involved at the front end of that process to expose faculty to a range of resources they might consider instead of always maybe repeating the same probably commercial textbook. And then another strategy that libraries are probably somewhat less involved with is inclusive access, which is a model whereby institutions work with a textbook publisher to lower the cost of a textbook for their students, in return guaranteeing 100% of the students will purchase the book, more or less, at this lowered cost. And libraries have sometimes been at the table for those discussions, but maybe not as much as these other initiatives. So again, we want to focus on the curriculum-based collections and our efforts to sort of identify what the problems are and to improve that process. This usually involves collaborating with your bookstore to find out what's been assigned in courses, and this is easier at some campuses than others because of various workflows or administrative setups, but the idea is, find out what's assigned and either match against existing already owned resources or go ahead and buy that content and quickly make it available by the first day of classes. Sometimes a logistical challenge to do that depending on how quickly you can get that content from the bookstore. And then this other option is I think, a pretty new role, at least for us. We've really been left out of the process of faculty selecting course content in many ways. It's often an individual decision or a departmental decision, and then the communication is with the bookstore. And we've been trying to sort of change that to involve the library providing more information about DRM-free texts that could be considered for use, that would make it very convenient and affordable for students, as well as other licensed content that libraries subscribe to that can become useful content for the course. So this is a little more visible, newer role for the library, and we're exploring that at the individual campus level and at our consortium level. Pass it on to Cara.
Hello, I'm Cara Cruz Lee. I'm the Director of Product Management for the EBSCO ebook program. And we're hearing a lot from our libraries this week about this OER movement and the desire to use more library licensed materials and courses and to bring users into the library for this growing set of use cases. So we've been doing a lot over the past year or two to support our libraries in these efforts. I'll talk about a few of them today. The first one is that we've partnered with Library Journal to survey academic faculty on their sort of perceptions and behaviors with regard to using ebooks as course materials. So we did the survey this summer. We had 228 faculty members respond. And we had a pretty good spread of both student levels taught and disciplines taught. So you can see we had mostly undergraduate professors responding, but we had a good representation from both community college and graduate students as well. And then a pretty nice spread across disciplines, the highest participation from the social sciences and humanities, but STEM representation as well. So one of the things we asked is, what are the biggest obstacles today to using ebooks as course materials? And the number one obstacle was that the library simply doesn't purchase titles that I use, 22%. Secondly was that students prefer print. Third, there isn't a good way to incorporate library ebooks into my course management system or syllabus. And then we did have some note that ebook platforms are hard to use. So we had a sort of long tail of obstacles and comments, but I did want to point out that a lot of the write-in responses indicated that faculty largely don't realize this is an option, or they don't quite understand how to fully take advantage of it. So there's a really big opportunity for libraries here. And then the other thing I wanted to say is that with regard to students preferring print, we did a lot of research into this earlier this year to try to reconcile. Students say they prefer print, but my ebook usage is growing exponentially. What does that mean? It's a very nuanced issue. It's very situationally dependent, we learned, and specifically convenience and cost are primary drivers of their behavior and their preferences. So we learned that ebooks really suffice in a lot of these use cases. So if anyone's interested in that research, I'd love to connect at some point later and share it with you because it's really interesting. But John and Dave will talk about how they're trying to address these specific obstacles at their institution. So I'll hand it to Dave.
All right, everyone. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the eTEXTBOOKS program that we have at LSU. We started it in 2014, and we've continued since. We've set up a web page where students can browse or search for their ebooks assigned for their classes. And the way we do this is first we start with a list from the bookstore. Our bookstore is happy to share the material with us. So we get that list. Then we identify the ebooks that we already own by comparing them to a report in our catalog. Those that we don't own, we will acquire them. And every semester, the web page is updated, a week or two before classes start. And in addition to the visual web page, which I'll show you in a second, this page also generates an XML feed, and this XML feed is set up and works in concert with our learning management system. So the learning management system goes out and checks every day for updates to this feed. This feed pushes it out to the LMS, and by default, every course will have a little block that says, hey, your eTextBook is available through the library. So here's the look of the page. We've got a little search box, and they can search by department, course number, instructor, various ways. The items are presented in the bottom in a grid format. We have the book title to give it a little visual appeal. And we also have this little blurb on the side, which invites faculty members to proceed and take a look at the faculty portal, which I'm going to talk about shortly. So some of our basic faculty engagement tactics is first we always contact any faculty member who has a book that's been assigned. We'll find from the book list, we'll say, okay, this is, this teacher. Contact them, let them know, hey, we have this book. If you don't mind, just let your students know that we have it, add it to your syllabus, just kind of make it known. We also leverage our subject librarians who have relationships with faculty members. They try to promote this initiative everywhere they can, all the department meetings, emails, newsletters, through all these various means. And finally, as I mentioned earlier, we have this process which automatically embeds the link in the LMS course, so that kind of, we're not relying entirely on the faculty members to promote it. It'll be there for the students to see. So now more about our faculty eTextBook search. So what we did was we built a portal. In this portal, we ingest records from publishers who allow us to purchase DRM-free, unlimited simultaneous use books. There's like 8 large ones. In addition to this, we also include open resources, open stacks, open textbooks. And the way we've done this is we've created a script that our developer wrote that'll go out, to the publisher list, and it'll pull down everything that's been published in the last however long. So this script will then output a spreadsheet file. Then we have a process that normalizes the spreadsheets to pull out the data so we have consistent data for each. We import those spreadsheets into our Drupal site, and that's what patrons will see. And right now we're up to 400,000 ebooks available. So when we first launched this in 2015, it was just like, okay, let's try to rush and get this out there in time. So it was kind of a bare bones first attempt. But we went out and did user testing with faculty members. So I just went out with my laptop to different departments, and I had a little script written up saying you're looking for this book, and if it was a biology professor, I'd have a biology book. And then we also asked them to search for books on their own that they might be interested in. We observed those, we recorded those, and we made some improvements to our interface based on that. So one of the things we did was we made a broad search, a keyword search, so that it would find any word that they'd listed. We added search tips to the no results page to help them, if they didn't get results. We noticed that people weren't really using the ISBN field. Our data showed that it wasn't clicked on much. And one of the last things we noticed is that they really wanted to know what we already own versus what we might acquire for them. So that was one of the top priorities for the second version. So the current version looks like this, where we add a little bit of visual gloss. We simplified the search interface and kind of made it front and center. People generally, they search by title or by author's last name. And then we just added a little gloss there by some of the most commonly used books. And when someone when you find results, this is what they'll look like. So we have a grid or a table layout. If we have the book, the ones that we own are available. They're distinguished from those that we don't own. The ones that are available will show at the top of the list, sorted to the top. And it'll, if you click on the Assign Now, it'll just trigger our eTEXTBOOKS manager to include it in the upcoming student page. If you click Prompt LSU Libraries to purchase it, it'll send it to eTEXTBOOKS coordinator, who then sends it on to the purchaser. And at that, I'm going to pass it over to Kara.
Thanks. So another one of the things we asked in our survey was about faculty behavior. So when they are assigning ebooks or books or book chapters in their courses, how exactly are they doing that? And we found that 41% post a PDF chapter into the online CMS, into their Canvas, Moodle, Blackboard. And that number actually rises with the level of students taught, so that when you get to postgraduate level, it's more than 60% of faculty are doing that. 28% provide the citation in the syllabus and no further direction. And only about a quarter of respondents are actually linking to the resource in the library. So the consequences of that behavior, to sort of state the obvious, is that when users aren't directed to the library resource, the library usage is lost. So there are stats available in Blackboard and Moodle and Canvas, of course, but that's one step removed from the library data. And what I find talking to libraries is that most don't have access to that data if they have easily or if they have any access at all. So another thing that we found was really important was to embed those links. And then a couple other things from the survey. Faculty are generally, at least philosophically, open to these goals of reducing costs for students, generating usage statistics on materials that they assign. So we see that as a pretty positive indication that with the right outreach, we could influence their behavior. So the second thing that EBSCO and GOBI are doing to support these efforts is we worked with the Lewis Consortium in Louisiana to create what we're calling a faculty portal. And this is very much a prototype. It's not been scaled or anything, but we wanted to sort of share what we're working on and what we've learned so far. So the idea is we use an EDS front end, and we allow faculty to search OER materials that we've indexed alongside DRM-free ebooks for selection in their courses. And if they find an ebook that they'd like to use that the library doesn't already own, they send a request to the library to make that purchase. So as Jean said, we're really meeting faculty at the point of selection. And where there are other portals that sort of index this OER content, what makes this one sort of unique is that it provides a vehicle for acquisitions. And so it really does expand the universe of content that faculty can make available if they're transforming their course or building their course. And then secondly, pre-filtering for DRM-free content eliminates some of the access issues that you might otherwise run into and ensures that if you are using one of these ebooks for your course, that user experience is optimal. So here's what it looks like, and Jean will talk about how they've implemented it at UNO.
So the portal is for the entire consortium, so it's a little different than the tool that LSU built, for their own campus institution. So Lewis, our statewide consortium, has been very involved in affordability the last several years and have our member libraries. And so they worked with EBSCO to create this portal so we could point faculty to this tool. And this is what the search results screen looks like. If faculty put in a keyword or a term, and it looks like the familiar EBSCO interface on the left side, or the limiting options. You can search for OER alone, or just orderable eTEXTBOOKs or eBooks, or you can mix them together. And it's, as she mentioned, it's a prototype, and we've had this up and running for just about a year. It started last October. And so far it's generated a little over 1,600 searches, and of those, 309 resulted in a click on a request to purchase. And then 89 went to an open textbook link. Most of the records are for eTEXTBOOKS. I don't know what the percentage is, but based on my searches, it looks like maybe 10–15% are open textbooks, and the rest are licensable ebooks. So that kind of explains that discrepancy. So when they click on request to purchase, they go to another screen where they have a pull-down menu to select their home institution, and if they can find it, not all of the libraries are configured to receive the request directly. Then it generates a notification to the library. And I tried to reach out to the librarians who have the configuration. We have it, but we haven't received any at UNO yet. They said that often actually faculty use it just to start a conversation about the book and learn more about it. It's not necessarily that they definitely want to assign it. But we're happy to see that, because we're, again, trying to get a little bit inserted into that process of selection and helping to inform faculty about the options for what they can purchase and responding there. So the tool has been great to have that option to point faculty to. Now I'm going to talk a little bit just about more of a problematic issue for us at UNO. We don't have the setup that LSU has to really aggressively kind of get our purchased ebooks into the courses. And so I discovered this might be a bit of a problem when, a couple years after we had been buying these eTEXTBOOKs for courses, I decided to look at the ebook usage and see, expected to see, heavy, consistent use for those that were bought and used in courses. And I didn't really see that. And Cara kind of helped me look at that data, and it wasn't as robust use as I would have thought. So I did a very basic questionnaire to our faculty that semester for whom we had bought ebooks, and said, did you know that we bought an ebook for your course, first of all? And if you did, how did you let your students know? And so of the faculty who responded, most of them did know that we had bought the book. We had emailed them about it and given them the link. But the way they were sharing it was predominantly through email. They were not putting it in the syllabus, which we had requested, and I don't even know what they meant exactly by email, or putting it in Moodle. And then this past fall, instead of asking the faculty, I just got access to take a look into all the Moodle courses where we had bought books, and I saw the same kind of thing, that the link was just not getting into the course. So I was very disappointed about this, because I think this was really the key way that students would use it at the point of need and really know that there was an ebook available for them to use for free. So I've been thinking now about how we might improve upon that, and talking to our Moodle administrators and support about getting more direct involvement and getting the link in there, and or giving faculty more instructions about how exactly to put the link into Moodle. So we want to improve on that for our next step. And then we have David's going to report about some usability testing on the student side for using ebooks.
Alrighty, so it doesn't do us much good to buy these books if students don't want to use them or can't use them. So we're very involved in looking at the usability of eTextBooks in general, ebooks in general. So I started with a review of the literature and found that most research that's been done by libraries as adoption is really based on usage statistics or surveys. And very few have actually studied the usability by actually observing patrons and seeing what difficulties they run into. The issues that are commonly reported are some difficulties with searching and difficulties navigating through the ebooks. And generally, participants have a mix of tactics. A lot of them will, you think that they might just search because the medium allows that, but they do a lot of referencing to table of contents and the index, which I thought was pretty interesting and nice to see that students do that. So one of the other things we noticed is that a lot of the problems are tied to the interface itself. Some of these tests were done years ago, and some of these interfaces were kind of clunky, and patrons had lots of problems with them. And another huge set of the problems were just related to the restrictions that the digital rights management software would put on it. So if you could only print 10 pages, that was a problem. If you couldn't cut and paste, that was a big problem. And the navigation tended to be a little clunkier in these platforms. The other thing, searching limited to visible page. If the platform only shows you one page, students will Control F, and then they can only search that one page, so that's not very helpful. So we at LSU launched our own research program to study this. We were starting with just DRM-free books, so try to get away from those restrictions and see how useful are they even without those restrictions. So we selected our 4 most popular platforms, the ones that have the most ebooks applied to our textbooks page. And we designed scenarios asking them to search for information in the ebook, download a chapter, print and copy sections, and then let's just see what other problems come up. So we found, similar to the other research, that a lot of our patrons they'll start with the table of contents and they'll try to, work logically through something. But roughly the other half will just search for things. And a lot of folks did use the index, and if there's a well-written index, that's very helpful. So I was a little surprised, you'd think that millennials and such they wouldn't even think about looking for an index, but no, they actually do go to the index. Now I did notice that some of the publishers, instead of calling it an index, they'll call the link back matter. And folks are like, and I'm like, well, what are you guys thinking? And they're like, well, I'm looking for the index, and I guess it must be this back matter thing. So that's just a little jargon that, platforms might want to avoid. Some of the other problems are with searching. So students are kind of used to certain search behaviors, such as if you have a little typo, you still get results, whereas most of these are just completely literal. So I had one student who just typed one letter wrong and was kind of perplexed with why they weren't getting results. So that's something that trips them up. And similar to that, they also expect any keyword to match. So most of these are designed where you have to, if you put in 2 words, they have to be those 2 words in that order, and then that'll throw people off. And the last thing we noticed that was a major problem is that if you search within the book, what often happens is you get just the chapter title, and there's no indication that this was found on page whatever. There's no context. There's no block showing the search term highlighted. And so several patrons would just stop there and be like, now what do I do? And they would usually click the first one, but they weren't really sure. So just last week, I brought my laptop over to the University of New Orleans, and we set up this test. There was one of the courses, one of the professors has worked on a project, shared the syllabus with us, and so we designed a test for this specific course. The first task we asked them to do was to find the course textbook. Then we asked them to search for the next reading. And then we asked them to print the next section, the section that was related to the next reading, and then copy a few pieces of text. So what we learned is that having a link into the CMS or the learning management system is really important, because the first person who tried to find it outside of the CMS was not successful. The others went to their course management system and found it pretty quickly. Again, a lot of folks were looking for the table of contents, trying to get a sense of the overall structure of the book. They had some problems searching, but it wasn't too bad. They basically found what they were looking for fairly quickly. There was some tricks with the printing. The way the EBSCO platform is set up, you have an option to print that page or a certain number of pages or the section. And most of the patrons were trying to find how many pages they wanted to print, and they kept going back and forth and counting the pages. It would have been easier if they just clicked on the print section, but most of them missed it. They were able to copy the text because there's no restrictions. And we also asked, luckily we're almost done. Most of them, they stated a preference for print, but some say, I love the convenience of the e-version. We asked more about how many students had actually bought the print book, and we found that the print book was actually available pretty cheaply at a used bookstore, so most of them had actually bought the print book. And so when we dive into that, we find that there's a price point. I mean, if the book is more than $100, they're not going to buy it typically. But if it's $5 or $10, they probably will. So this becomes something extra for them. And finally, we're going to wrap up with some takeaways. What's things that work or engaging faculty? There's usually we found some champions who are really supportive of this. Most of the people I reached out to say they really do care about providing materials that are inexpensive for students. It was successful for us working with our bookstore. They don't seem to mind sharing the lists. They've said that it hasn't really decreased their sales substantially. Being able to integrate with the Moodle system has been a huge help. We always ask students, how did you learn? Oh, Jesus. How'd you learn about that? Okay. Anyway. Let's see, I'll just move on from memory for the challenges. Well, they're kind of the reverse of the positives. If you can't get it into the CMS, students don't know. Some faculty are engaged and others are just not. And
Sometimes we can't find the book to purchase.
we can't buy, yes.
There's still a lot of books that we'd like to be able to deliver this way. We can't.
Mm-hmm.
That's a challenge.
Yeah, because you have a mic.
There's still so many books that we can't license DRM-free that faculty want to use. It's a perfect book for their course, and that is frustrating to want to be able to deliver that and not be able to. So that's still a continuing challenge.
Right, and a lot of the underclassmen, a lot of the initial math classes and chemistry classes, they have to use a certain textbook that has lessons embedded in it. So all of those are not really available. Most of what we get are for upper level classes. We have a lot of books for graduate students in humanities. We do have a fairly high number of upper level math books and upper level chemistry type books. So I guess I'll open it up for questions.
Thanks a lot. That was great. Related to the last point, the not being able to license all books DRM-free and just books not being available at EBOOKS. I imagine you having had that conversation fairly often. Do you have a template or a place on the website where you direct folks in how to answer that question, or any strategies and how to go about having that conversation without spending too much time?
Well, we do have about this program where we talk about the limitations and we talk about what we can acquire and what we can't. So that is there, and then a lot of it is word of mouth contact with the faculty.
This is a conversation usually the liaison librarian is having, at the point where the faculty member asks about it. And we do sometimes have an version that's not DRM-free, and if it's a small enough class where we think it might work okay to get a 3-user license, we have done that. But otherwise, no, we just kind of say we offer them to you know, maybe by the next time they teach the course, it'll be available, or to look for other content. And I do think the liaison librarians really have enjoyed that role of what do you need? Let me go see what I can find that's either open or that we can get for you, and filling that role. It's been very gratifying and yeah, kind of meaningful. And
Yeah, and I just would add that EBSCO is always working with publishers to try to get more of them to participate in this model and to collect data that this driving usage really does help their sales. When we offer DRM-free books, they're rewarded. So we're growing that list all the time and just doing what we can.
If you addressed this earlier, I remember you saying you could limit the search results to DRM-free. The one thing I'm experiencing when I search for my faculty is I'm pulling up a lot of limitations of either 1 seat users, 3 seat. Do you also have that as a search limiter, 1 seat, 3 seat, unlimited use?
In the faculty portal?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah, there are different options based on like how you can plug in the catalogs to EDS. Like I said, it's a prototype, but it's absolutely possible that we could expand it to include both single user and 3-user models. Right now, we've found that the 1 or 2 implementations we have are preferring to just eliminate that hassle at all, but it would expand the content available for sure.
Then you also have this father explaining to faculty limited usage and
Exactly.
heavy one-on-one.
And users, the end user variation is really tough too, so yeah.
So on our portal, we just import ones that we could purchase for unlimited usage, and we'll always purchase it.
My EBSCO that's the beginning. 2 of my institutions would greatly enjoy doing this with them.
Once a faculty member makes a request, how human mediated is it afterwards, and have you installed a price cap? Because we've seen recently, after the move to DRM-free, some of the university press content, I'm not going to name names, but we're looking at like $750 for an unlimited access book. So when it gets to that level, you can blow through a budget really quickly. I'm wondering how you mediate that, and if you've installed a cap, and if so, how did you figure out what that should be?
We have not yet installed a cap. So far that hasn't come up. So far we're just really trying to, bring this program to life, and we don't want to say no to anything. As far as human mediated, it'll go to an email. There's a lot of human mediation still in this process.
yeah, it is. It's a request for purchase, so we haven't really promised that we would buy every ebook, although we have bought most of them when we've had the funds to do it. We don't have an official cap. It depends on our budgets semester to semester, although we have our most expensive ebook we've purchased so far is a $1,000 ebook, but the cost to the student was a $280 or something like that, I believe. And we knew that the ROI for this science course, it was a biology course, and this was not a, obviously we can't license the Pearson and the McGraw-Hill textbooks. This was just an upper level biology book. And so it was worth it, even though it was, normally we would balk at buying a book for that much. But in this scheme where our focus was looking at the ROI for student affordability, the math made sense. And I should also say that our consortium has been very aggressive in leading on many fronts, this affordability effort, including OER, but they have also allocated funds for libraries specifically to purchase these books. They set things up to make it easy for the consortium actually buys a lot of them directly through GOBI for us. We just have to prove that it's assigned in a course. So that changes the equation a little bit than if it was our own budget that we have to really, parse out in different ways.
Yes.
I wonder if you could talk about the future of the faculty portal for other EBS customers. Is this something we can ask our representative tomorrow? What does that look like for the rest of us?
Great question. Definitely ask your rep about it. Right now, we are just testing some implementations. And so if there is a high level of demand, we will absolutely work to scale it. So talk to us for sure. Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you all for coming.